Oh my God, the symbology. Anyway,
Yeah, that just started recording.
yeah,
What was the symbology?
right. I'm just looking up the Jonestown thing. Like the numerology is, it's just jumping off immediately. But yeah, I'll. It's something that we can certainly look into. There's enough that you know off the top of your head in regards to it. So yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I think we can do it like Berlin story, and then kind of like segue into Jonestown. Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
yeah, sounds good.
And so, audience for our two Minnesotans living out in the survivalist camps, listening, tuning in, much appreciated. That's a joke, but it's probably true. They are our only subs. So we did. So James basically has had a really sore throat, and then potentially he might have a ruptured appendix at some point. So that's why we weren't able to record the last one on Sunday. Yeah, so this is going to be beginning with that dirty, filthy tale which we promised to tell. I just got out of bed as well, and I'm supposed to check out. I'm in Nicaragua of this place in like 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I'm trying to zone in. I'm trying to get you guys like, I want the energy of this filth to be kind of apparent. So I guess we're
Yeah,
just far away. James did introduce, I believe, I think it was the episode before last. We had a little introduction into what the story would be, and
we
then last
did. We
episode
arrived at the gates. We
we
arrived at
arrived at the pearly
the
gates.
debauchery. The gates of
uh,
debauchery.
the,
Yeah.
the gates of debauchery. Do you know the thing about the story is though, listeners? It's not just a filthy story. The real point of this is that there is a seedy underground world which so many people that you
Mm,
meet from day to day, whether you know it or not, are a part of. And this
exactly.
isn't exactly, yeah. And this isn't just a singular example. And by no means is this something that's, this isn't an illegal club. And there are tons of illegal clubs, as we know, kind of places where Hollywood stars end up, banging 9-year-olds. This is probably the filthiest, as far as I'm aware, the most iconic legal filth den, at least in Germany, but it is quite renowned in Europe. Anyway, I digress. Let's begin. So, as James said, 2 episodes beforehand, we were venturing out on a night out, as the boys do, and there's a very iconic place in Berlin called Bergheim, and we're on our way there, and we were aware that you've got to be dressed in black and be a little bit gay, and you've essentially got to fit the bill, which is really ironic, of course, because it's not very alternative to be alternative in a way that just matches everyone else's so-called
Exactly.
alternativism. So, but of course, that is just the hypocrisy of the entire system. And later, we actually returned some years later during the COVID scamdemic to Berlin. By the way, James, Nicole's in Berlin right now. She literally just messaged me like a few minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you that later. Anyway, sorry, audience. Yeah, so we actually returned a couple of years later to find Berlin was the most 1945 it's been since 1945. Because a lot of the people there pretend to be kind of like
Yeah.
alternative and they strike themselves down, but when it comes down to it, it's all back down to the mainstream normative values. So we're heading to this Bergheim club, and yeah, we're a little bit tipsy. I think we've had a few to drink. And
Yeah.
on the way, these two guys came up to us, and we said, "Oh, we're going the right way." And they said, "Yeah, but I recommend you should take your tops off." And we were like, "Oh, okay, right, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do this," because we were aware already that it was, quite difficult to get in. There's a bouncer there called Spider, who's a big gay man, and he has a tattoo of a spider across his face. And this guy is basically renowned for essentially yes knowing those intending on entering. So you literally just approach the gate, and actually above the gate they have loads of CCTV cameras, and there's probably people up in the penthouse VIP booth who are communicating with the bouncers and telling them who they want in, probably
Yeah.
because they want to bum one of them or all of them in the toilets. That's basically how it goes down. So, you approach the gates and it's like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So then it was our turn, and it's freezing cold, by the way. We got our shirts off. Everybody else has got, just black clothing on, looking like atypical, grungy kind of individuals. We get to the first player position and it's no, and we're like, oh shit. So we walk off to the side and we're like, because we really thought we were going to get in, I think, and we were like, oh no. So what should we do now? And we kind of pondered, and then I said, well, there is another club, and it's called Kit Kat. And Kit Kat is a slightly filthier, it's a smaller version of Berkheim. I think less people are aware of it that are outside of the kind of Berlin community, albeit it is still very well renowned and kind of regarded for its kind of kink. So we thought, okay, well, we've already been rejected. What is there to lose? We get a cab to the Kink place, Kit Kat. So we put shirts on, got in the taxi. Uber arrives outside, and we were like, is this the right place? Is it open? Because there was no one queuing. And I believe it was, I don't know what day it was. It was either a
It
Thursday
was,
or a
it was a
Monday, wasn't it?
Sunday. It was a
It was a Monday,
Sunday.
yeah. Oh, it was a
I'm pretty
Sunday,
sure it
that
was
was it,
a
yeah.
Sunday. Yeah.
So basically, I think they had a rule on a Sunday, which is tops off or bottoms off. Usually it's both, as far as I'm aware, because it's super kinky. But on at least, correct me if I'm wrong, audience. If anyone from Missouri or Minnesota in their farmsteads have been down to the kink club, do let me know if I'm correct on that. But we approached, and yeah, like I said, there was no queue, a door with kind of a submarine hatch. That's what I remember, kind of like a circular window and probably a peephole. So we knocked on the door, we waited. Guy answers the door, door flings open. It's a big gay man, bald head, white guy, looks us up and down and says, and I'm going to try and do the accent, have you guys been here before? And we were like, we looked at each other a little bit nervous and we like synchronized, no. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh. And he says, he pauses for a bit and he kind of like judges us. And he says, you know what? I have a good feeling about you guys. But first, we have some rules. So we enter the first part of the door area where the cloakroom is. And he says, okay, so number one, you have to ask before you touch. Number two, no mobile phones. You must leave them here for obvious reasons. They don't want people filming, fucking politicians having orgy sessions and doing all this kind of stuff. And then he said no snow, which means no cocaine. And the place was completely filled with it, as far as I remember, especially in the
Yeah.
toilets, as you'd expect. So
Yeah.
that was ironic and quite comical. I like a bit of comedy. I didn't realize Germans had a sense of humor, but I do appreciate that one. So
To be fair, I don't think
we
he was
gave,
German. I feel like he was Polish, but
yeah, he could have been Polish,
yeah.
yeah, he could have been Eastern European, but
Mhm.
maybe that's why they couldn't find a
Yeah.
German that was suitable for the doorman scenario. So either way, he was actually quite friendly, and we could see past him. There were a few people kind of like wandering around, but it was by no means even close to half full. It wasn't even a quarter full. It wasn't busy at this point at all. We kind of strolled over to the bar area, got ourselves some drinks, clocked that there was a swimming pool basically out in the courtyard, and we thought, oh well,
Mhm.
we'll head over there. So we headed over to the pool, and it's as you'd expect a pool to be, but a bit weird that it's in cold Berlin. You have your loungers around the edge, and just lots of men, kind of perusing and I guess just chilling and chatting with their drinks. Again, it's Berlin, so most bars are kind of cater to kind of homosexuals, so it's going to be primarily dudes. However, there are a few good-looking ladies around, weren't there? And we
Yep.
sat down next to a couple of Australians. I believe there were two Australian women and a couple of guys near them. And we're slurping on our drinks, just kind of like gauging the environment. And then all of a sudden, the pool splashes, and this beautiful woman, fully naked, is just swimming in this pool. And we're all watching it. Everyone's just watching it. That's what you're supposed to do. It's a sex club. So we're kind of, we're getting used to this new kind of scenario. And then all of a sudden, she gets out of the pool. And, it was like the scene, viewers, from Doctor No, which is the first James Bond movie, albeit this lady was obviously fully naked, but she gets out of the pool and she comes straight up to James. She clocks James and she comes straight up to James. So she sits right in front of us with her amazing breasts just in our face. And she is the poshest person I think I've spoken to in quite a while. It turned out she was a Cambridge undergrad student, 18 years old, and she would frequent this sex
I
club
think she
for
was
a
a bit
couple of
older. I
months.
think she was a bit old. I think she was like 21,
No,
22.
no, no, she wasn't. She definitely wasn't. She 100% wasn't. She said 18. I'm 100% sure of that. Maybe
Mm.
19, but she was on her second year of her undergrad program which wasn't medicine or anything like that. It was something she told us, like some bullshit subject. I don't know. She was definitely a teenager, 100%. Which in the US, by the way, for our US viewers, it is legal in Europe, just in case people are thinking, oh my God, this is a teenager. You are, as a teenager, allowed to go to a bar from 18 in most places. In England, it's 18, so this is not in any way one of your strange scenarios. You know, in the US, it's obviously 21. So just to clarify that, for the Americans. Yeah, so she starts chatting and we're making small talk, you know, like where are you from? You're studying, oh, at Cambridge, okay, cool. Yeah, she's like, yeah, so I like to come here for a few. This is a terrible impression. It's starting to sound like camp German. She's like, yes, well, I like to come here for, you know, some kind of, you know, release every couple of months, you know, just to kind of, you know, blah blah blah. I think we asked her, I think you did actually. You said like, oh, what do your parents think of this? It's just so funny because of what happened like a few minutes later. So basically, as far as I'm aware now, that's
There's
a
a few
cute.
bits that you've missed out,
Oh,
right?
have I? Have I?
So do you
Okay.
remember while we were sitting there, one of the predatory regulars, do you remember he came over like while she was talking to
Did
us,
he?
like, yeah, there was that kind of like French guy, I think he was. Like he had like, yeah, he just kind of like came over and like it was like when a hyena's trying to like wait for the lions to leave and the hyenas come, just oh yeah, like let me see if I can get like a little bit of intestine while you know the lions are eating like their mains. Like us being like the lions because you know, like we were in a position of, I don't know, like this girl was obviously interested in talking to us, right?
Yeah.
And then this guy came over and he kind of like, you know, was like kind of like, I don't know, hinting to her like, yeah, you know, do you wanna, yeah, like come with me or whatever. And obviously at that point, yeah, it didn't
Well,
happen.
yeah.
But
Well, at this point, I think we didn't realize that because this is our first time in this club. Like we don't understand the etiquette, you know.
at
But
all.
essentially, yeah, at all. And essentially, when she came up, that is the cue for fucking. Literally, that's what it means. She's chosen, and that's what you're supposed to then kind of engage with that. But we didn't realize that. And then essentially, like the conversation fizzled out. You've got this French guy there, and she disappears off, I believe, with him to the end of the pool where I guess you have the ladder and the you know the pool board or that kind of stuff, where she had jumped in like you
Yeah,
know
she was
some minutes
kind of like
earlier.
getting herself dried. And
Yeah.
then the hyenas
Oh,
fucking
and then oh mate. And then for our audience, I am going to be very. I'm going to give you all the details that I can remember. I don't know if you're allowed to tell this kind of stuff on YouTube, but I'm going to do it anyway.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I mean,
you think so?
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
yeah,
guess. I
you know,
guess
because it's kind of like that's what they want, isn't it? Like
that is true.
if it's perverse
They
and
like
like
that.
it's
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
that is true.
Yeah.
So essentially, what happens is because we didn't engage, like we didn't. I mean, we were engaging from like a normal social standpoint, but obviously, being a sex club, you know, it should just basically go to banging straight off the bat or some kind of sexual activity. So she went off with a French guy, and we literally within seconds, her legs are spread over a chair. And a big French guy, and I mean big because I believe he had a big schlong, was absolutely banging her, and then some other hyenas come along, and it turns into a three-way sesh within seconds. So you've got this gorgeous, well-educated, very posh Cambridge undergraduate student who is literally getting rammed in every single hole imaginable. So you've got the French guy with a big cock banging her in the puss, and then you've got some guy doing her up the arse, and then some guy fucking her in the mouth all at the same time. And everyone around the pool that's there might be maybe 20 people spread out around the pool. Everyone is just watching the live show. There's almost like a kind of insidious, seedy silence and just hearing like the actual sex go on while everyone is just spectating. And we are completely fucking shocked, by the way. To everyone else, this is, I assume, a normality. This is why they're there. They've probably frequented the place a few times. Many of them probably come to that kind of place every day and then go off to another one afterwards. Maybe this is just the starter, and then they go to the underground one where all kind of dodgy stuff happens that we can't even comprehend. But there's just this kind of like silence. We're staring, mouths kind of gawping, not comprehending really what has just happened. And then all of a sudden, it all finishes. They bukkake over her. She sits there. They all jump in the pool, looking very chuffed with themselves. And then this guy comes over, and basically everyone in the club has like a fetish. So one guy's got a fetish where he wanders around with a stack of towels. Originally, I thought he was the lifeguard, and I thought he worked there, like he was just the cleaner. But he had a stack of towels because his fetish was wiping cum off people. That was what he was into. So he would wait until someone was getting absolutely fucked. It would all finish, and he would kind of jog on over and start really getting into scrubbing all of that bukkake sesh off the face, the feet, all that kind of stuff. So it was just absolutely like a different world, a different universe. And then because of what happened there, that Australian couple, I believe there were two women. One of them started
Yes.
fucking a guy like off the bat. They were so turned on by this. There, a fucking missionary sesh starts going on next to us, where some guy is just slamming this Australian woman right next to us, literally like a couple of meters away. And so, what was this happening? We're completely shot. We decide, okay, well, we've missed that boat. We've seen that show. We're going to get up and we're going to go into the nightclub because there's a nightclub. And I
Yeah.
vaguely remember I think we stopped off in the toilets on the way, which were obviously filled with cocaine. And then you started chatting to the other Australian girl whose friend is getting pounded on the
Yes.
sun sofas.
There were actually
And
three of them. Do you remember?
oh, there were three of them, were there?
Yeah, because there were two. Because there was one that was getting smashed, and then there was the two, and they're the ones that we ended up kind of with for the evening. But I'll let you get to that bit. Do you remember?
I
And
don't even remember that bit, but then I
oh,
remember how many whiskey and sodas I had. I was keeping
yes,
count, and I had 9 whiskey and sodas. Um, and I think they were pretty weak whiskey and sodas as well, but still 9 is
I
like
think the situation was so sobering that they weren't kicking in because
absolutely no, 100%.
it
And
was like, what
I
the
remember
fuck are
there was a
we?
guy wanking on a chair as well. I
No,
remember
he was
that.
laying on his back. That was, oh my god.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, like yeah, he was laying like on like the walkway from like the bar to the pool. He was just kind of like just laid on his back. And I remember just thinking, like, what? Like, did I just see that? Like, I just caught like a split second of it, and I was like, what?
oh my god.
Yeah, horrific scenes,
And
horrific.
by the way, just to like reiterate, this is a fucking Sunday night, and this club is not that busy at all. I would say it's at like
Half full.
15%. No,
Yeah.
I would say no, less. I would say
No.
less than
At
half
peak, at the
full.
peak, it was like half
Oh
because
yeah, it was getting busier towards the end, yeah.
yeah,
Because we ventured off into the club, we got these whiskey and sodas, and one thing that's also distinct in my mind is I saw two little Asian guys doing backflips across the nightclub, but in a way that was just like it was surreal because clearly they were talented individuals. They might have been like gymnasts or something. They knew that they were doing, but they were on so many drugs that they were flipping at such a rate. And I was not smashed at this point, I promise. We were not that drunk. Like they were flipping at such a rate that it was just fucking speed. It was like methamphetamine times 20 with talent, like thrown into the equation. They were just doing these backflips across the dance floor, and I'm at the fucking bar ordering this whiskey and soda. Obviously, all the staff are like batting for the other team. It's that kind of campy place. I was checking my drink actually. I was like, I don't want to get fucking raped in this place. Checking my whiskey soda, looking around, and then I'm seeing this, and I'm like, oh my god, this place is like just a fucking jungle of just insanity. So yeah, I mean, that's from that point on. I think I got progressively more pissed and I do not remember too many things. I think the sobering had by this point ended, and I was going into the oblivion of potentially getting myself into a dodgy situation. That's all I was concerned about at the back of my mind. So, right, have you got any other
things to add to
details
it.
to?
Right.
Yeah,
So as that saying goes, your vibe attracts your tribe, and those three Australian girls that John alluded to earlier on, two of them weren't being banged in there. We actually befriended them and started speaking to them, and yeah, one was called Ferdas. I actually still have her number, believe it or not. And she was Australian but of Turkish heritage. And then the lady that kind of spent the time talking to you, I can't remember whether, but they were kind of like doing like a little backpacking trip across Europe, and that just happened to be their stop in Berlin. And they also were not frequenters of that kind of establishment. So like we were kind of
Although,
like, oh my god, what the fuck's going on here? And yeah, and they were like, oh yeah, that's my friend. Yeah, like she's just like, yeah, like she hadn't done it before, but obviously she's taken to it like a duck to water, pardon the pun. Hence, it was like by the pool.
yeah, but like that is but the mentality of the kind of people that go there. Even though I think a picture's been painted that they're very like nice, kind of like innocent Australians. At the end of the day, one of her friends is getting banged within like 2 seconds of entering the club, which I don't think is normal for most people.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say innocent because neither are we. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
However,
yeah, that's true.
Just in terms of they maybe just weren't frequenters of sex clubs, because there's lots of I don't think they were frequenters of it, and none of them got banged. Because I don't know if you remember when we left. You remember Uzbek? Do you remember we was in like the off license afterwards?
I have no
And
memory.
you pretended to speak Uzbek. You're like, yeah, my mum's half Uzbek. And then you came up with this sentence, and it fucking sounded legit, like you're talking Uzbek, and I fucking believed it, and she believed it, and then I
no, I think it was Azeri, and I still do that joke. No, I don't remember that at all, but I can still do that. I do that quite often, actually. Right. It might have been Uzbek then, but I say I'm Azeri, or I can speak Azeri, and it does come out quite well somehow. But yeah, so keep going.
Anyway, you did that joke, and that's when we left. So I was hoping that would trigger a memory of like the bird, because I think you might have bought her a couple of whiskeys as well over the course of the story. I'm pretty sure you did. Yeah. So said person that John saw backflipping across the dance floor, he was actually, I believe, the drug dealer of the place. He was the guy that was supplying drugs to people in there, and obviously he was getting half his own supply. Hence the added stimulation that gave him the agility and the balls to pull off those amazing moves on the dance floor. But he was essentially breakdancing at like 1.8 speed. Like,
yeah, it was insane. It was actually insane.
Yeah. It was crazy. And I definitely have visuals of that. It was like a scene from like a futuristic movie, because it was like a dark, like little nightclub with like lasers kind of going everywhere. Then you had this guy with like kind of like these leather straps going across his chest with no top on. He was kind of short and muscly and doing these.
It was like the movie Zoolander. Have you seen Zoolander?
Yes.
With fucking something Owen. I always forget his name, and then the
or even like Fifth Element with Chris Tucker, like just weird
combo of everything. Yeah.
Floor. Like Demolition Man. It was just like some futuristic, weird dystopian scene we were in. Like people, topless, like lots of like, some people wearing leather, some people, wearing just kind of like normie clothes, but just with their tops off, etc. And yeah, that was a crazy experience. But when we, first walked in and we got our drinks, and then we went to the, swimming pool area just to sit down, it was just like a scene from dusk till dawn, because it all seemed pretty tame and normal until we heard, the waves of the water, the little splashing in the pool. And we're like, oh shit, a topless lady's just fucking swimming in a pool. It was just like, I've never seen that before in a nightclub ever. And then obviously what we saw afterwards with the young Cambridge girl getting, absolutely gangbanged. That was and it was just like, it seemed very rapey and non-consensual, and like, even though it obviously kind of,
yeah, it was definitely consensual, like definitely consensual.
It was, but
she was chuffed with it as well.
She just went along with it, like
she accepted the first guy came over, and like they'd already kind of agreed. So, and then the other kind of guys just kind of like
joined in,
but she didn't say no. Yeah,
she didn't say no. Yeah, it was just fucking disgusting. It's the sort of thing.
Yeah, go for it.
It's the sort of thing that, like, I don't think I'd ever be like, I don't know. that's that's one of the situations that proved to me that I'm actually somewhat of a prude, and I love ladies. I absolutely love ladies, but in terms of like wild sex acts and exhibitionism and stuff like that, I'm definitely not that person. I know for sure. I've been in enough situations to know that I'm not that person. But yeah, it was absolutely bizarre. But yeah, I'm pretty sure those Australian girls, we ended up kind of like, getting hold of them in there a little bit. Like, that was like our little safe place. Was like me with her friend and you with the other friend. Like we maybe just had a couple of drinks together and had a little kiss and a dance and yeah, and that was the extent of it.
There is
Yeah,
another point we should make though about the gangbang. None of these people were wearing condoms, and these are all
yeah,
strangers as well. So it
yeah,
is the most fucking AIDSy scenario ever to be
that as
taking
well.
cocks from people whose cocks are literally in others, probably of all sexes at all times, 24/7. This is like,
Oh,
it's absolutely insane. Like the amount of fucking that pool must be riddled with STIs. Like literally, I wouldn't even want to touch it with my
oh,
toe.
absolutely. Like,
Like
getting
it's
that pool was not even a consideration.
no,
Like,
it is minging. Like the notion that you can just take a bang from someone that you've never met before, who is literally probably banging half the other people in the club and other clubs like the very same night. And again, no one's kind of plasticking
ah,
up.
shoot.
It's fucking insane, like really, like, and to think of the age of the woman in question, like, who's very well educated, obviously quite upper class, very upper class. Just the notion of, and this is what I guess we can kind of gateway into, like the because I think later we had some friends basically in Berlin, and we actually met up with them, and we told them the story, told them what happened, and coincidentally there was a frequenter of said club in this kind of little house party gathering which we had, and I remember distinctly this guy looked like Billy Idol, bleach blonde hair, obviously banging for both sides. Was openly a guy that said he frequents, this place all the time. And his eyes, through the words of Jimmy Carr, and I hate Jimmy Carr, by the way, but he's said this about himself. He's like, I've got eyes like piss holes in the snow, which is basically like devoid of emotion, eyes which like contain absolutely no emotion whatsoever. And they usually are predatory, they're usually associated synonymous with like sociopaths, psychopaths, people who just like there's nothing behind their eyes. And that's what
Mm,
this guy had. And we told him about the story, and this is the kind of guy that you would see there. Um, and again, it's what drives these people is, I think, what drives those at the top of the chain. Because if you're willing to do these kinds of things, by the laws of logic, in my mind at least, if you are like a nymphomaniac, or you're someone that's like an addict of any kind, you're always going to try and build on that high. So it might just be a gangbanging kick at fucking, I don't know, 11 p.m. on a Sunday, but at 2 a.m. on a Monday morning, it might be one of those clubs which aren't legal, something where all kinds of shit's happening. And we know these places exist, and these are the people that essentially drive our societies. Because normal people, I'm not saying we're, as listeners and ourselves, a representation of that normality, but we're certainly moral individuals, or more moral in our kind of outlook. We aren't willing to do these kinds of things, and therefore we don't end up in political positions where we can make changes, because we're not willing to take a horse's head and get sucked off by a fucking dead pig, something like that. And these people do this. It sounds like quite an extreme jump, but it's not an extreme jump. If you're taking a gangbang from complete strangers, like devoid of emotion,
yep.
and that you're going to end up getting a job role in the government or whatever, because that's the kinds of people they want people that are willing just to, at the click of a finger, just jump from A to B and not think twice about the consequences of their actions.
This is absolutely true. Well, let's fast forward to last Friday, exactly 1 week ago. I was at a gathering, a house party, and half of the people there were homosexual. Not that, this is just to give you an example. The guy whose party it was somebody that had a job of major responsibility. a very important role within infrastructure and railway infrastructure, government contracts, traveling the world on business meetings, weekly. That week he had just had an afternoon meeting in Italy. He was in Milan on Wednesday for 4 hours, then come back. It's that kind of job, international, shaker and mover. As a result of his job in planning and railway infrastructure, he also knows where the property value is going to peak in certain places. So therefore, he knows beforehand, well, we're going to be building a station there. I'm going to buy a property there. It's going to add 30-40% onto my property value. So, and coincidentally, this is somebody... who also has
Gotta be careful with the
those
words.
has those eyes that John just spoke about, and also is as I said, in a position whereby he can do these things, and then on top of that, he's also lives, let's just say, a very promiscuous lifestyle. So he has a fiance. However, their relationship is very open. And I spoke to other people at a party. I spoke to an oncologist at the party, and people with what what people would say are accomplished people, that are maybe, around middle class, lots of middle class people, and, some maybe even upper. And the middle class, the doctor, she was actually a female oncologist. She, informed me that, half the people here, involved in the kink scene, and they're all polygamous, and just involved in lots of different types of what we would call depraved acts, and to be for a very, what you'd call a liberal term, a libtard term, let's just say, sexually liberated, which to me, I'd just call it, I don't know, a bit pervy, a bit, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's just that is a real life example, literally, people talk about, people, John's just said that, people will be, put in certain positions because of the things that they're willing to do. And I literally have seen this on more than one occasion. Most recent time been 7 days ago, when I saw people in power just behaving in ways that it's just or people with positions of authority, people with important roles in society that, just behaving in ways that are, wild and, for lack of a better term, perverse, from my standpoint. You're still allowed to call people perverse. You don't get blacklisted for that yet. That's not. But soon, I won't be able to say that anymore, I'm sure. But that's how I see it. This is the world that we live in.
Well, it's like the networking scenario too, isn't it? If you are kind of frequenting places that are kind of non-conventional, say kink clubs or whatever, you're going to meet non-conventional people, which I believe, are more capable of kind of what's the word? Do you know what? It is weird, but I don't want to give them credit. But I think if you're going to those kinds of things, you probably think outside the box. You're obviously very driven. You're driven by the perversion, because often it's an addiction. I think a lot of these people are genuinely like nymphomaniacs. And there is that belief, I guess, at least assuming we are to take it on, take it as truth, that sociopaths are generally more capable than the average individual. So, the fact that they're driven is one thing, that gives them kind of a little bit of extra kind of
driven in a very normie capitalistic way.
driven in a normally
driven
capitalistic
within the
way, but
frameworks given to them in a
yeah,
sense,
but
because
at the same time, they are willing to apply their desires. Obviously, many of them
mm,
apply these desires illegally because they're into all kinds of kind of sick acts and things that are by the kind of ruling of law, criminal offences, and we can all imagine, we know what that
mm,
entails. But they are willing to apply it, so they are, it's different to someone, for example, an analogy would be someone that's like, I've always wanted to bungee jump, but I've just never got around to it. I'm too scared to do it, but I really want to do it. And then, the people that are literally bungee jumping and fucking paragliding like every single day because it's an
mm,
addiction. That's what they love. It's the same thing with kind of
mm,
like the kink clubs. There's going to be loads of people out there that are kind of like, I wish I could like do that. I wish I could, fucking that way, or like get involved in that kind of like, sex scene, but they're just not, they just can't, push themselves across the river, so to speak. It's just, that last little leap they're unable to do. They don't have the confidence or ability. These people do. They know what they want and they apply it, and that's, I guess, what makes them successful. But then the add-on to that is, of course, because these are such niche kind of groups, there's a security and a bond that's brought about by meeting others, and I mean it's because of that that Dave at the fucking office in London Met might be like, well, I can employ 10 people here, but Linda, I met her at the King Club the other day and we share the same secrets. And, of course I'm going to employ her because of it. She might not have the best
mm.
ability, but that's, essentially it's just the old school networking routine, like with fraternities and
Yeah,
sororities. And of course, the more secretive these clubs are and the more niche and novel the fetish might be, then then you really form these kind of strong, secure kind of bonds, and that's how the ladder gets worked. That's how you climb to the fucking not the pearly gates, because they're climbing down into the depths of fucking hell, but like it's that
yeah.
kind of thing.
You get higher in the rat race. Yeah, you become a bigger
Absolutely.
rat, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Um. Yeah. I just don't like to give these people too much credence. I think.
Yeah, it's true.
I think. I just feel like there's a lot of just like general perversion. I think it's like they're innately hypersexual. I don't I think the minority of people have the desires that they do. There definitely are some people who have those desires that don't act on them. But I think it's still like the vast minority of people that have those desires, and obviously even less of those people actually act on them. Um, but as it's been popularized, they're actually making people curious about things they wouldn't necessarily be curious about. Like so that book, 50 Shades of Grey, which I've never read, and the film that I've never watched because I refuse to, but I know what it's about. I've read reviews, and lots of females that I know have told me about this book. And I saw that after the book came out and after the film came out, I saw the effect it had on society, and people, women especially, were more willing to explore these things, and it became almost fashionable to now want to be tied up and to have all of these things happen. And before that, of course, people wanted these things to happen, and I'm sure that there's yeah, there's always been like a thing around, maybe a woman wanting to be dominated, or wanting a, kind of like a strong man, kind of like, put her in her place and all that sort of stuff. But it all kind of gets like, ramped up when things are pushed. Just like we were having a conversation off air the other day, and you made a great point of how the whole LGBTQ alphabet is, being pushed. And now, because kids are impressionable and kids want to be cool and do things that seem cool. I mean, if there's loads of people on TV on adverts, like you've got two good-looking guys kissing each other, two good-looking women kissing each other, whatever. Famous celebrities that are really, been they're always on adverts and that they're transsexuals. Someone might just think, you know what? Yeah, I might, especially at these impressionable, formative ages, I might just start, batting for the other side. I might just start having like same-sex relationships. I'll tell you what, I might even change my gender. And the NHS will pay for it, so it's not even going to cost me anything, and I can be this like novel person, like this cool, different, unique individual. Although there are now, hundreds and thousands of people, like that, and yeah, it's definitely something that's spreading. It's definitely like it's definitely going viral. It's like a virus that's spreading. Indeed.
Viral. It's funny, isn't it? The word
Mm,
viral and virus, of course, the
yes,
etymology linked, because that's exactly what it is. Popular, I can't even say that word, the popularization, there we go,
mm,
of anything is for the most part always a derivative of, a narrative set by the status quo.
absolutely.
And like James said there, with the kind of like LGBT movement and all this kind of stuff, I would add to that, though. I think I said as well that they've created a system where either you're in the group or you're out the group, even if by the laws of the group you are that. For example, like there's lots of gay people that do not subscribe to LGBT, and
Yep,
most gay people do not go out in the streets at what's called now a parade, and take off their clothes and act in a way which is frankly just absolutely just inappropriate on all levels.
yep,
Being, they've created this idea which ironically is super homophobic, that that is what gay people are. But of course they're doing it because the drive of kind of this consumerist capitalist materialist society, which is their ultimate tool. I think a lot of the times, because of the kind of capitalist communist debate, neither are real, of course. They're one and the same. There is no two wings of the same bird. But that's very much kind of the old school debate. And I think now, like, everyone prefers talking about other things, but really that is the core and the crux of everything. It's the idea that you get people, because everybody wants to be different in society. Naturally, it's social survival. Everybody, instead of having to be big and strong and fight off your enemies like 100 years ago and labor in the fields, as farmers, now you progress up the ladder based on your aesthetic value in society. It's all competition based on consumerism, and the current trend now is how individual are you compared to your neighbor. That's why people spray their hair 3 different shades instead of 2. That's why you have more and more piercings, more and more tattoos. That's why you're now ramping up the stakes. You're banging dudes and women, and now you want to have a sex change because it makes you feel like you're more unique, and therefore you have better accolades in this kind of social competition, this endeavor to be the ultimate top dog, if you like, which again society is trained to believe from the off. If you take the old school American movies, it's all about John worked really hard in the law firm, and he started as a copywriter, and he ended up as like a barrister and then a judge and then a supreme judge, and the American dream. It's really the same thing when you break it down. It's the idea that if you're willing to subscribe to more values sponsored as kind of like forms of ultimate individualism by the state, then eventually, because you're the ultimate individual, you will get the ultimate reward for that. And of course, it's never going to be accolades that are of value to said individuals. It's never going to be teaching someone how to be a really good medic, or chop down a tree, or fend for themselves in the wild, or build a house, or things that have practical application and real value. It's like, well, if you suck someone off in an underground club, and you call yourself Janet when you're John, and you get a sex change on the NHS, then you're winning in society. Because again, everything is backwards, everything's upside down, as we know. Freemasonry just is one of the main kind of protocols of organized crime, which is exactly what it is. Their motto is order through chaos, and everything is essentially topsy-turvy, back to front. It's always reverse, which is why when you see school systems now, when you see people in authority, especially in the public sector, it's never Jim or Janet that spent 50 years out in the field training on medicine or whatever, people that have actually earned the right to be in a position of professionalism. It's always the fucking person that has 3 shades of sprayed hair and is fucking Tom behind the kitchen. They get the job. And that's what it's all about. That is really what it's all about. And like with the 50 Shades of Grey, like James said, that's one of those kind of uh, core examples of something that's implanted in a society to set a trend, to create
yep.
a social change. There's obviously numerous versions, things like Animal Farm, Orwell's 84, all kinds of books, and especially kind of art subjects, sculptures, all these things, they all serve a purpose, and that purpose is to set social change. So yeah, it's fucked. It really is fucked, and I don't see it ending. I mean, we're taught at school, I guess, at the end of the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire. Again, I don't believe standardized history is in any way true, or at least there's elements of truth. But of course, the general depiction of what happened is a falsity. But even then, it was about the idea that people became too relaxed. They became very promiscuous. They were just drinking wine and force feeding themselves to the point of chundering constantly and then re-eating. And because of that, standards dropped, and they were overrun, which essentially is what we have now to a degree. If you align this to, say, migration, you have a Western society which is very lazy, very complacent, with having had years, decades of kind of comfort. And now when kind of an alternative group of individuals comes in that have had to work for a living, that have come from societies where every second counts, every penny
Yeah,
counts, businesses are being overrun because those people can work a lot harder. It's really the same principle. It is the decline of the West. It's the destruction of one society to be replaced by the next. And of course, it's a perpetual system. So, for example, if you take Middle Eastern individuals, Arabs, Turks, whatever, that are primarily at the forefront of European migration now, 100 years from now, it will be the same thing for them. They make their money, they become too complacent. And actually, not to go on such a huge rant, but I was speaking to a guy recently who's a British Indian guy who I met on my travels, and he said that a lot of businesses 20 years ago, they were all owned by Indians, and now they're not, because we've all made our money and now we're comfortable. And actually, all the businesses that you think are Indian or Pakistani, they're all owned by Bangladeshis now, because it always goes down the net to whomever is willing to cut more corners. And of course, the more comfortable you become, you're willing to fight
very
less
true.
for each penny. So it just it gets absorbed by the next group, and so on and so forth. But again, we are, as we've discussed before, at the peak, at the kind of the epicenter of the valve, which is about to burst, and that is society is crumbling. We've reached the point. If you're starting to promote children, starting to promote transgenders or transsexuals or transvestites going into schools and rubbing their knobs up against random kids as a form of education, I think society is already way, way gone. I think there's so many examples we can give, but this one is a prime for me, like, because it's become so normalized that it's okay to bring transsexuals for no reason whatsoever into children's schools. They do this everywhere in the United States, even in the United Kingdom now. They shake their booty in front of
Yeah,
children. This is
yeah.
somehow more important than a math lesson or a chemistry class. We've already reached the point of destruction and decline. There is no going back. It's only one way. Only one way. Uh,
Emphasized by the fact that parents will actually fight for these drag queens' rights to actually do this in front of their children.
yeah. It's obscene. It's obscene. It's absolutely. I mean, what can we say to it? I mean, I don't know. Have a drink of a dance and have a play. Quote of Pete Doherty that I've said 1,000 times over.
Yeah, it's yeah. Honestly, I mean, we all have coping mechanisms, and like, you know, that's one. But you need to, but at the same time, you need to be aware, and just like, knowledge is power at the end of the day. And if you're aware of these things, you see them for what they are. You can protect yourself and make choices according to what's right and your belief systems, which should be in the right place. I think for most people, they are in the right place, but a lot of people, initially anyway, but people get brainwashed. People get brainwashed by the status quo. We've been brainwashed in so many ways from birth. And a lot of people kind of like go along. People kind of like have like a feeling inside that, this probably isn't right, but everyone else is doing it, so I'm just going to do it. Everybody knows that like road tax doesn't make any sense, because it's like, well, I get taxed, and like the government look after the roads with the tax that I pay with, the 20% you dock from my wages. That's income tax, right? That goes to the government, and they use that for everything, right? But then I have to pay for road tax as well. But everyone else pays it. Oh, fuck it, I'm gonna pay it. Insurance goes up every single year. Yeah, even though I've not claimed, because I've got like 12 years no claims bonus, for some reason my premium goes up, even though I'm supposed to be rewarded for not claiming. And these are things just every single day. There are many ways in which we just go along with things like willingly, And people know that they're wrong. It's not that people are immoral and think, oh yeah, I have no morals, therefore I'm gonna, pay. It's just that people just go along with things. People are just complicit. People are weak. People are worn down. People are brainwashed. People are demoralized. They're not immoral. They're demoralized. So it's not like an innate thing. It's something that's like bestowed upon them. But yeah, this is the state that we're in, and this is why we have our little chats to hopefully disseminate a little bit of perspective, to give you a bit more morale and self-esteem, and empower you with knowledge to make better decisions for you and your families going forward.
Well said. Perfect. And on that note, actually, I think we're considering from, I say we, I don't know if we've discussed this, but we should start, we're going to make, I think, or we could make each coming podcast more topical. So we had a thought today, actually, that we were going to discuss the Jonestown massacre. However, we haven't done enough research at this current time, but it would be nice to start throwing in a dirty story at the start, perhaps, or something interesting that's happened, perhaps in the last weeks or in the last couple of years, or something travel tale, or story from the depths of some dirty nightclub. Who knows? Anything. That's always nice to throw in, because often they're quite comedic and comical, and that's something that is, I guess, refreshing in modern society, given that these topics are obviously quite, I wouldn't say negative, but they do have a lot of negative connotations. And again, we don't want to bring audiences down, but of course it's important to talk about nonetheless. In fact, it's good to talk about these things, because a lot of people seem to ignore anything that has negative elements. The kinds of discussions that you see in pubs nowadays are never about philosophy or these kinds of topics. It's always just the kind of mainstream standardized, back and forth, football, girlfriends, that kind of stuff. So these are important conversations to have. Nevertheless, it is good to, I guess, balance it out. So, we've had thoughts that maybe next week, James, we could talk about Jonestown Massacre or something like that. Some specific topic that would be of interest to people. And if you don't know what the Jonestown Massacre is, go and have a look online. It's fucking insane. It's the magic numbers, of course, but 918 people apparently killed themselves in a mass ritualistic Christian suicide. However, I don't believe that. And if we look at the location where this happened, and even today, this is a very interesting part of the world. This was in 1978, and those responsible and the true origins. These are the kinds of ritual sacrifices that happen all the time with respect to wars. COVID, all that kind of stuff. It's a mass occultist cult, and it'd be interesting if we could kind of go into something like that. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon it's a good time to wrap
absolutely.
up? Yeah,
I think we're about 50 odd minutes in.
Perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week. Thank you for listening, and next week we will bless you with our views on Jones. And we'll no doubt share some interesting perspective. Hopefully, we're in good state. We've had a bit of a rough week, so I said, with John with his sleep, and we have a couple of minor health challenges.
Did I tell you about my ankle, by the way? I can't remember if I told you about my ankle and my eye.
Oh fuck!
So, mate, so I climbed up a volcano because I didn't want to pay the fucking entrance fee of the trail, because it was just a scam. So I managed to get up there quicker than everyone else with a more beautiful view. And then I got a bit cocky and I ran down the volcano and I completely full on rolled my ankle in a way that I've never done. And I do quite a lot of running, and I've rolled it many times before, many painful scenarios. But this time it was the worst roll ever. And I heard the snap. So something cracked, something went. I think there's a slight fracture somewhere. It's still very swollen and painful, and that was about 9 days ago now. So that's the first thing. And then my eye, I've had this problem with my eye where I think it's because either my glasses aren't, I think they are the right prescription, but I think just the refraction of the light on the lens or something, or if I don't wear them, I'm really prone, my left eye swells up. And I almost had that again a few days ago. It was really painful for the last 3 days. And when you do that, I can't even use a laptop because it actually strains it even more. And then, it can lead to infection or something like that. So, yeah, mate, it's been a nightmare. Like, all these little things, mate. We're getting old. The years of breathing in the fucking poisons of the world, and, the occasional beery brews filled with all the substances of devil's toxins. I swear this is all eventually leading to the crippling effects.
Indeed. Just received a call on Skype, but my laptop Skype at the same time. But never mind. I've just
No worries, no worries. We'll wrap it up now. We'll wrap it up now. So for everyone listening, yeah, appreciate that. And as James said, we'll be touching base next week, and hopefully we'll have a tale to tell about the Jonestown, as well as some dirty fiendish story from some club in who knows where. So yeah, appreciate you guys listening, and I guess we'll tune out. And I'll speak to you later, James.
Adios.